Joe Streeter for a Payment Expert. Fantastic to be joined by the CellPoint Digital CEO, Kristian Gjerding. Kristian, firstly, how are you keeping? How is everything at CellPoint Digital?
It's pretty fantastic. It's a high growth year for us, and thank you for having me here, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here again, I guess. Things are really well. It's a very good year. We're growing really fast, almost doubling in team size, and obviously making a significant foray into the market. And as you will have seen earlier this year, we ventured outside travel. So going into a range of different verticals, and we're just hired teams to cover that. So since we spoke last, we onboarded a number of people with that expertise.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks ever so much for joining us. And the last interview we did, we spoke about the travel industry, such an interesting and, pardon the pun, turbulent time for the travel industry. It's interesting to see how, now that you've expanded into gaming, what principles you can take from the travel industry and payments in travel into gaming, and you can use that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is obviously with the gambling industry, which is also evolving fairly quickly. A lot of the things we learned in the travel industry about complexity, cross-border payments, security, fraud prevention, all these different areas is coming in very handy now that we're slowly but securely moving into gambling. And
how is the? I know it's very much a long-term plan, but how is the expansion going? How have the first steps on the path looked, if you like?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a very I wouldn't say it's a very regulated environment for good reasons, and so for us it was a learning curve to understand the implications for our business, and then starting implementing those implications. And the whole concept behind gambling obviously is that legalizing it for commercial purposes has been a long road. As I'm sure you know, years ago it was pretty much monopolized by operators, sanctioned by governments. Still is the way in some countries, and some countries won't even allow it, online gambling. But now we're seeing a huge opening, or I wouldn't say legalization per se, but it's becoming more accepted in more countries, still with a lot of legislation around it. And so for us, that was probably the biggest part of moving into gambling, or beginning to move into gambling, is to get all the measures in place that is required. And then also figuring out which countries are the most important countries to start for us first, where are we going from a geographical perspective. It also matters quite a lot. There are again, a myriad of rules and regulations, and they differ from country to country. There's not like just one big area in the world where you can say, well, this is all the same. So I think it's been predictably so a long process for us to get into it, and we're only now beginning to dip our toes into this market, and hopefully we'll start bringing in the first merchants this year.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because you very much have a global footprint, and as you say, the gambling market doesn't lend itself to global expansion too well because of the different regulatory requirements. What are some of the markets that have provided the best opportunity for expansion, and the most regulatory challenges? Can you give us some insight into that? Trying to work out which markets are best for you.
Yeah, I mean, so the first areas we're going for is Europe, and very specifically UK, obviously, because UK is I would say a reasonably mature market. Denmark is also not bad either. We've seen an opening in Denmark, which is where I'm from, in online gambling in the past 5, 6, maybe 10 years. But mostly in the past 3 years, there's a number of operators that are entering the market with great success, and it's ranging from a whole range of different online things. So both just simple computer games with wins to more sophisticated kinds of gambling. So that's interesting for us as well. There's a few other European countries where, while there's still a lot of legislation, it's possible to operate, and we're seeing operators successfully building sustainable long-term businesses, and that's where we want to be.
For sure, and obviously with you being from Denmark, does it help when you go into a new market to have that local experience and that knowledge, I guess, not specifically speaking about Denmark, but whenever you go into a new market, is that something that is essential?
It is, because, again, for gambling operators, and that's at least the way we see it, even though gambling operators may be at least large regionals and operate in multiple different countries, they need local representation, and so everything is localized in regards to their compliance and their registrations and what they can and cannot do. And so being local in these markets is a requirement. We need to understand what's going on, we need to understand the legislation, we need to understand the market dynamics in terms of how gamblers want to utilize these services and what the possibilities are. And again, we're coming from a I wouldn't say conservative industry, but a very stable industry in many ways. Granted, with COVID, traffic volumes are down, but it's still there, right? We still see billions of passengers this year going through the travel industry, and so for us, gambling is the same approach for us in terms of what we're looking for in the markets we're going for. So I think the localization and the ability as a global company truly helps us in this process.
Yeah, I can certainly imagine so, and obviously the UK is the other market that you mentioned there. I guess for a company expanding into UK gambling, you must have a real eye on the review of the Gambling Act and what this may mean for the regulatory climate in this region.
Yeah, and obviously, it's not that Brexit was any surprise for anyone, I guess, other than when it actually happened back in when people decided to do it. But obviously that does create certain things and actually also opportunities, quite frankly. And I think we are a UK company. CellPoint is a UK-based company, so we're pretty serious about it, and we think there are opportunities there that we want to leverage.
Yeah, brilliant. And so just talk a little bit more about, because we have a lot of payment firms in the gambling industry. Why is CellPoint so well suited for this sector, and what really how do you see your evolution as a key player in this region and in the sports betting ecosystem?
So again, we are we're really an enterprise platform provider, even though we're cloud-based and all these different things, and we come from that environment. Clients running 24/7, transactions going on all hours of the day and night. Merchants looking for sophisticated availability parameters and the ability to service on that level, and where you have a myriad of requirements in terms of acquirers, payment methods, reporting, reconciliation. So a lot of maturity is where we come from and where we want to go. And I think that when you look at the gambling market, this is a market that is maturing significantly. It's not just a matter of getting services into the market and being able to take payment. They need to highly streamline their entire operation, and they're pretty sophisticated tech companies, most of them. And so now payments is coming into that arena, and I think payment orchestration, which is what we are, a payment orchestration platform provider, is really ERP for payments. This is the end-to-end management platform, whether you are a local, regional, or global provider who has a multi-acquire strategy and you're looking to optimize the payment flow. Because when these companies begin to grow significantly and they mature, what happens is that they need now to optimize their entire flow and to streamline and also to automate. And I think that's what we bring.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's it sounds very relevant. It sounds very important to our industry, and we've really seen the relationship between we have seen the relationship between fintech and gambling flourish, and it's starting to come together. how important do you think that can be, and why do you think that the two sectors are such a perfect match, really?
Well, because they're both super high tech. They're very fast moving, and so they have a similar mindset in their approach to deploying services. And one without the other has no value. So it's a really yin-yang relationship in my mind. And I think it's very necessary. As I said, same thing with e-commerce in reality. If you look back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, taking payment online was difficult and cumbersome, but it's just the last foot really. And as long as you could service a MasterCard or Visa card, you're done, right? And you could take payment, and if whatever conversion ratio was fine. And now, if you're not totally streamlined and very professional, you're going to lose transactions, and it's going to matter a lot if you're a large provider with a high transactional volume. So I think that these two industries, as they both mature and one begin to really fragment, which is what's happening in the payment reality. They have to come together to ensure that the conversion rates stay high and acceptance rates stay high, and obviously chargeback rates go down. And I think that's essential for the gambling industry. Yeah,
certainly. And before last time we spoke, we did speak about the airline industry, and it is where you specialize in at the moment, and we have all this experience in. So I did want to get your insight on what this period has been like, as we dare I say we sort of emerged from the pandemic now. It's still a very tough time for the airline industry. How has it been? How have you had to adapt payments within the sector? And just what's it been like on the front line, if you like, I guess?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was rocking. I came home from a trip. I had my family in the car, and my son was sick actually, and we think it was COVID. We're at a location about 5 miles away from where we live, and doctors didn't want to see him. I mean, it was that same day, and doctors didn't want to see him. He's been sick for about a week with pretty high temperatures, and very hot coughing. And we just got back from Japan, so I think it's highly likely that he had the COVID. And so we got back an hour later after we come through the door. The Danish government shuts down the country. And it's literally a domino effect that hits the entire world market. And within 3 weeks, our airline transactional volume goes down to 5%. I mean, it's nothing. And so, as a business, fortunately, we're a solid business in terms of our owner structure and where we're going. We were already at that time, I just want to say, beginning to look at other verticals. So it was not like we weren't already beginning to think in this direction. And so throughout the summer, we accelerated that process, began to draw up the plans for a much faster rollout of services for other sectors. And so we began hiring, and it was actually a really good process for us. CellPoint grew in that period of time, which is fantastic, and we expanded our team, brought in people with the experience we needed across all our areas, from sales to compliance and finance and whatnot. And obviously, a super high recruitment process is challenging for any company. Growing 100% in a year is significant, even if you're a 100 and some people organization when you start out. That's a pretty big growth number. So it was very, very busy. We had to define what sectors are we going to go for first, where is the best fit. And I will also say, in that same period of time, when we started talking payment orchestration back in 2013, maybe, and we called it a payment control platform back then. Nobody had any idea what it was. There was a few airlines who had actually built switches themselves to kind of, manage some of the complexity. But when we came into to the beginning of 2021, you've seen a number of payment orchestration platform providers come into the market. And so obviously what we're seeing is that for us, it was just an accelerating market. We saw super growth, hyper growth in e-commerce. And so it was super exciting. We did not want to lose our travel expertise either. So we actually just hired a whole range of people with expertise within various sectors. Super exciting, challenging in that it was a long weeks, long days, onboarding all these people. And there is just a lot of good people out there, and now there is a high growth across the entire payment space. So, if you're a fintech person, you're not going to be without a job, I guarantee.
That's it. Yeah, it's good to hear for sure. And just a couple more actually. You speak about the fintech industry there. We've seen post-Brexit, Britain really try and focus on, I guess, retaining its fintech stature and fintech ability, if you like. What have you made about these efforts, and how important is it that we don't lose I guess London specifically doesn't lose its status as a fintech leader? And also, we've seen the government, sorry, there's a lot of questions in one here, but we've seen the government try and expand that into different regions. Is that, how do you feel about that type of movement?
Super essential. I mean, this is a business question, really, on a macro scale. If you ask me, governments need to step up their educational situation, and they got to attract females to the industry. I mean, this is a big issue. We see way too few females in technical roles. We're fortunate in our technical teams. We actually got, I think, about 35-40% females. And that's a massive untapped resource, highly qualified, highly skilled. But if you don't attract them to the universities that will educate these people, we're going to have a massive loss. I mean, this is one of the biggest challenges. I don't think there are many countries in the planet that has an overflow of fintech people. I think there's way too few. And this is obviously for the UK essential, and it's essential to do it outside London. Pandemic has showed us that you don't have to be sitting in the same room to get things done. You can be sitting in many different locations. The workforce is way more mobile now, positively so. The technology platforms are available to sustain this, also on a technical level. And I think that the UK has a huge population. They got a large rural. This is a little crude because I don't think Manchester is rural. I don't think Leeds is rural, and so on and so forth. I think these are big cities. But you got a huge country with a lot of people. You need to get a much higher percentage into university, and particularly the technical university is going to give the education. And this is outside even fintech. Just think about AI and other technology platforms. So I think if the UK needs to really step up its game in that regard and make it way more accessible to get into good universities that gives proper education. And also and I know it's happening, and it's happening in many different countries, but generate shorter educations. You don't need a 7-year degree to be a kick-ass programmer, right? You could be a good programmer with a couple years of education if you're smart. And we got to break it down into pieces so we get people into the workflow faster.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I'm Manchester based, and it's great to see a bit of the fintech focus has been spread here as well. It really is great to see. And just to bring it back around to conclude, what can we look forward to in sort of the next 1-2 years of CellPoint Digital's expansion into gambling? What are we likely to see? What can we look forward to in this evolution?
So, as a business, we are partnering with some very significant companies to provide more services. We're going to expand within the value chain of payments. And you'll see a number of announcements this year and early next year in this regard. Obviously, a high growth of clients coming in, both in what we call mid-market, but also in our enterprise play, which is where travel traditionally is. And a large expansion in capabilities. We're launching a couple of very significant modules to sustain our venture, not just in gambling, but cross-sector really. We're shooting for the stars, big time, and world domination. I guess a little bit. No, but seriously, we're making very significant progress, and I think we want to be a main player in fintech, and I think that's an important distinction here, because while I know fintech is a lot of different things, if you're looking at the traditional providers, they are really providers, as in service providers. We're a technology provider with financial technology, within financial technology. And I think this is where the world is going. I really think that the traditional processing is going to change a little bit. There's still challenges with risk underwriting and all these different things, and you'll still need a number of players to sustain the global market. But from a merchant perspective, this is becoming a technology play, just like ERP or CIM.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, yeah, that's fascinating, and I'm certainly interested to see how that plays out, and I couldn't agree more, if I'm honest, of the importance. And yeah, it's been interesting to see the relationship between payment orchestration and gambling evolve as well. So I think that's something that you certainly specialize in and can really make your own in the coming year as you expand into gambling further. So yeah, Kristian, thank you ever so much for your time, and I'm sure we will catch up soon again in the future when CellPoint Digital is a big player in the gambling industry, and not making them first steps, but is now a big player in the industry.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thanks ever so much. And just stay on the line after I click stop. Yeah.